But before we get there, I wanted to talk about the book. The book is called "When Dawn Comes with Wings." So start for me at the title. What inspired you for the title, but also how and why did you end up putting this book together?
Okay.
Amazing book, by the way. Amazing book. I'm not gonna get the chance to say once you start going on, but yeah, amazing book. Everyone should get one. It's incredible. But yeah, talk to me about the book.
Thank you. It's very kind of you to say. How did it come together? It was one of those things where just lots of things happen at the same time, and they just
Converge.
yeah, they converge. And they converged at a time when I suppose I had the time to write the book. So for context, I have epilepsy. So at the end of 2022, yes. So time is just like
That whole 4 years is just completely void.
yeah, literally. At the end of 2022, my health just took a turn. My epilepsy was controlled, and then I don't know what happened, but I think I also kind of burnt out. But anyway, it just wasn't controlled anymore, and so yeah, that was very difficult. I just started a new job at the time, and I just couldn't hit the mark, and I didn't pass my probation, so I was out of work, and my health was not in a good way. And my neurologist said I needed to change my medications, and that process can be very up and down. Things tend to get worse before they get better. So I decided, I was very lucky I was living at home. So I decided I'm going to take some time to heal, do this medication transition, and then go back into work afterwards, because when you have a seizure, or with the seizures that I had, I was out of it for like 2 weeks. As in, you're out of it for a few minutes, but then like in terms of just the cognitive recovery, it took a while for me. So that was sort of what put me in a position where I had a lot more time on my hands. But then I don't like doing nothing just as a person. I just like twiddle my thumbs. I don't like it. Yeah. So I was just writing more, and I was writing about my experiences. It gave me a lot of time to reflect as well. I was writing about my experiences, both past and present, and how I was feeling and my emotions. I just started writing a lot because although with regards to cognitive recovery, it took some time, in the space in between, like I could still use my mind. Even in the time after the seizures, like I could still use my mind, even though it might not be as coherent like what I was writing at that time. But yeah, and honestly, I had just written so many poems that I was like, I might as well make it something. And that was why I decided to write the book. And then as I continued writing, because at first I didn't know what it would be about. I just knew that I wanted it to follow a story. And then as I continued writing, I was just like, you know what? This book, as it is now, is the journey of how I got from a dark place to finding hope, essentially, to finding a hopeful place. So I wrote it, but the reason that I decided to share it is because I was just thinking, if it can help one person feel seen or heard or not alone in their experiences, if they've had a similar experience of being in a dark place and like searching for hope, then it's worth it if it reaches one person.
100%. 100%.
So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And with regards to the titles,
Dawn Comes with Wings.
When Dawn Comes with Wings, I went through so many different title ideas. The first one was the Cocoon Chronicles, because I was like, I'm pretty much in a cocoon phase of my life and this is chronicling it. But it didn't feel right. And then I was like, maybe I just go for something totally different. I was going to go for the Owl and the Willow. I don't know why. Like, I was like, it sounds cool. But then I kind of was like, I don't want to give it a title too early, because I don't want to then gear all of my poems towards the title.
And even the themes around title, right?
Exactly, because I wanted it to follow like its own authentic journey, and then the title reflects that journey rather than making the journey veer towards the title. So yeah, when Dawn Comes with Wings, I literally just saw a psalm, which was Psalm 139, verse 9, which is...
It's in the book. So I have to try to remember it. It's in the book.
If I rise on the wings of dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea,
That's beautiful, yeah.
even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. That's amazing. And that is the inspiration for the titles. And I just, as soon as I read that, I was like, this is it. Like, it just is one of those moments where you're like, this,
Yeah.
this is the one. The one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, I got so many questions. You see me just scribbling away because I don't want to forget my questions. First off, yeah, absolutely incredible. I think it's such an incredible inspiration that you got to write this book. I can definitely tell. I think I have this theory that artists, we roam the world and we just wait for the muse to hit us. And I think that's what that was. The muse hit you at the right time where you were able to turn that experience you're going through into words. And we do it so often, we don't know how magical that is. Like, it is really magical to be able to take that experience you're going through and you do the section into different parts, and then have it all kind of connect. I think the reason why I really like this poetry book as a poet is because it touches on all the feelings that I have too. And I think that's what is so universal. I think that feeling of feeling lost and finding yourself, and then the emotions that you have to go through while you're doing that. And I think, I think that's what it makes such a beautiful book, because it's also like, you can read it, even if you're not a poet, you can still read it and see an experience that you've gone through really like sharply described, and you use many different techniques to do it. You use nature, but you also use your own internal emotions, and like use internal emotions maybe as a canvas, emotions as a canvas to paint this picture you're painting. Each different poem, is different, but it also kind of sometimes will kind of like cascade into each other, because you're building, especially in a section, you're building a story, you're building an image of like a situation you're going through, an emotion that you're going through, trying to paint that. I think that's so amazing. I think that's so brilliant, because I think as every poet has a thing where they have a feeling they don't want to describe, and maybe it's a thing where that's news 101. Every poet wants to describe feelings. It's true, though. It's so fact. It's the most. But that's all we do. We just want to describe our feelings. We just, if you lift us towards the vibes, all we do is just sit there describing how we felt. But I think sometimes it's hard for us to find or even validate our own like way of doing it, right? Because we do it like, oh, this is how I feel, but I don't know if this is exactly how I feel. But it's so interesting when you see another poet do it. That's exactly how I feel. I said, how did she know? How did she know that feeling that I had? How did she know when I felt sky, I had to turn the skies and like how? But then, it's because they going through a very similar thing, and maybe because you understanding the way they say it, and it's because it's not you and it's someone else.
Yeah,
you see that as actually a real thing.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful.
It really is, and honestly, I think this is one thing I love about poetry too, is that you can really feel seen in other people's poetry as well. And I do think human emotion is a universal currency. It's something that we all exchange. It's something that we all experience. I mean, obviously, everybody goes through different things and are in different situations and different circumstances and stuff. But I think the emotions that arise from what you experience, although to varying intensities, obviously, are largely quite similar. And everybody experiences that. And I think we can all connect with each other on that kind of level too. So it is really beautiful when you read something or listen to something that someone else has written, and as I said, you feel seen or heard in what they've said, it makes you realize that we are a bit more connected than you might think.
100%. And he spoke of something that's interesting. I want to to move into a tangent there. He mentioned human emotions as a currency. Look into yourself. What particular emotions or themes do you find keep coming back? You keep coming back to in your poetry, or you find difficult to write about in your poetry?
I think I write a lot about, I write about fear.
Mm-hmm.
I write about uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a dominant factor in my life at the moment because I don't know what my future's going to look like. So it's kind of like fear of the future. I sometimes write about love, but to be honest, if I really think about it, a lot of my poetry at the moment is kind of centered around uncertainty and trying to overcome uncertainty, fear, and also the fact that sometimes you can hold yourself back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to not be the barrier between me and what I could potentially do.
That's so. I relate to that a lot, actually. You read the poem that I wrote today, and it was about a lot about those topics, those themes about uncertainty, about fear, about how you deal with that while you're going through it. Like, I think there's also a thing about knowing you're going to be okay, but not having actually got there yet.
Yeah.
And then it's weird because you know you're heading in the right place. You know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because you made the decisions, you made that kind of affirmation within yourself, but the fear and uncertainty is still there.
Yeah.
Because you're not there yet. And that's the difficult thing to go through. And I think, I think I definitely agree with that. It's a prevalent thing in my poetry too. What would you do? What would you say to someone who's going through that also? How would you advise them to wade the waters? I know you're also figuring it out, but you're a poet. So this is what you do.
How would I advise them? I'll start by saying I don't always practice what I preach. I would say, and I know this messaging is sort of everywhere, but do it scared. I was having a conversation with my friend literally like a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the comfort zone, and he was saying that sorry. He was saying that he thinks that in order to leave and stay out the comfort zone, so it's not just about leaving, but that's good. You just like stuff up a second, like okay, I'm gonna come back now. But actually staying outside the comfort zone, he thinks you need to embody the version of yourself that would exist outside the comfort zone. And I think that's a really interesting point. And it reminded me actually, so I will say as well, another thing that I write quite a lot about is faith. So my faith is really important to me and it's very much a guiding factor in my life. And it reminded me of a Bible verse, which is 1 Corinthians 15, I think 35 onwards, which basically talks about the fact that you can sow a seed, but in order for the seed to grow, it needs to die to itself. And then it forms and it grows and it's a new body. And it's saying that God gives the body for the season of growth. But the growth does not look like what was sown. It's something different. And so for me, when I think about leaving the comfort zone or just growth in general, because I do think that the distance between you and the you of your dreams or what you want to achieve is often growth. I just think that if I have faith that the seeds that I sow will grow into something beautiful, I think you've just got to make that leap and do it scared and trust that, God will provide you, equip you to be able to operate outside the comfort zone, essentially. So my advice would just be have faith, do it scared, and be open to learning, because there is no progress without making mistakes.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think from my experience also, it's been one of kind of always figuring out I could do more than I even thought I could, because I'd given myself the space to actually try it. Like I look at poetry, for example, me turning up at that event place and performing. Like I was scared, like I was very much scared, but like you said, I did it scared because I wanted to, I think kind of back to what you said, I wanted to be that version of myself that did the poetry, and I was like, okay, I'm here, who's scared and hasn't done it, and I want to be there, who is scared and has done it. So like, there's only one thing I can do to get there is just doing it. And by doing it multiple times, is fascinating too, because you start to reveal yourself to yourself.
Yeah. No,
I can do this. What else can I do?
Exactly. It's so true. And this is what I mean about not being a barrier to yourself. Like, you need to give yourself the chance to explore what you could do. And like you said, the only way to do that is to just do something, try it, and see what happens. Can I ask what motivated you to perform poetry for the first time?
Of course. Trying to think back. I think I've always been interested in poetry, some form of. I think hip hop has got me very like lyrical, miracle kind of. I like people. I like people who like use like loads of good lyricism in their things. So I think I always looked at hip hop as a form of poetry, and then. Well, I wrote for a long time, and then like I said, from COVID or something, but I never really went out and performed. For me, the barrier in my mind was, oh, like this is a thing I do, and I'm like, okay, do it in this small form because I know that no one will judge me if I'm writing to myself, so no one will judge me. But if I now perform it, it's now I give it to the people, and now the people can judge me. And I think again, coming back to that thing of being perceived, like we were talking about before. I think me being perceived in front of all these people, like they were trying to stand me, I was like, you're never going to get me anyway. So that was a whole kind of internal thing. And to get over that and to let go a little bit, is why I decided to perform. Because I was like, you know what, like these are all in your head. These are theories and hypotheses in your head. Like they don't mean anything. Try it, go outside, perform. And I did. And then the feeling I got, and also like, it's threefold. First, you're there, like I was mentioning, and you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm scared. Then you see people performing, and you're like, oh my God, they're really good. So it gives a little bit of anxiety, but also like, they just perform something really personal to them. You see that, and then you go up and because of the mood and the vibe of the atmosphere of the room, you feel comfortable to share that. Then afterwards, they're like, I loved your poem. And then that's a third blow. You're like, oh my God, like this experience was nothing like I could have expected, because very rarely do you find people like allowing you to open up, creating a space for you to open up, hearing you out when you open up, and then like affirming you, saying that was incredible, you did that really well. And so that, I think since then, that experience was something I've always tried to, go back to, and now I work there because I fix things like I couldn't leave. So I was like, oh, fine. But actually, you mentioned something interesting in what you were speaking about, also like the two places of like who you are now and who you want to be. I wanted to talk a little bit more about that too. What the question is, like simply, well, how do you navigate the space between who you are and who you aspire to be? But also, I've also often noticed that who we aspire to be always moves forward as we go closer. So how do you also navigate that?
Yeah, honestly, that's a very good question. And